Welcome to the Superabound podcast, where vision-led entrepreneurs learn to build a generous business without sacrificing what matters most. You are listening to episode 319, The Invitation to Superabound, an audiobook bonus. Hello, welcome, Happy New Year. If you are listening to this in early 2025, we are back at it. After a really lovely couple of weeks. I have shared this before, but I really think it's important as a coach and as a person who teaches other coaches and works with a lot of entrepreneurs, because our work is so primarily focused on creating what we call like holistic success. It's not just about being financially wealthy, it's about being well in all areas of your life. And because of that, I think it's really important that when I take time off, when I take that nourishing reset time, I really do it fully. And so this was a really lovely little break for me. I hope you had an incredible holiday season. And however you're coming into this year, whether you're excited about the fresh new calendar that you have before you, or you're feeling some trepidation, I just want you to know that you're very welcome here. And I have something for you today that I hope is inspiring and I hope is helpful for you to resonate with, no matter where you are on your journey as a leader, as a business owner, or as a human who is interested in this idea of superabounding. So today, I'm sharing with you a chapter of the audiobook version of our best-selling book, Superabound, that I wrote with Steve, my husband. And this is really the story about one of probably the toughest moments in our life, or my life for sure, but in our relationship. This was kind of a crossroads moment in our world that eventually led us to living this like beautiful life that we have now. But at the time, 10 years ago when it happened, it was really hard. I was in so much pain, not only physically, but emotionally. And I remember when Steve and I were discussing whether to share this story as part of the book, I really didn't want to. You know, he thought, and our book coach, in fact, thought like this is an important story to tell. And because my work is so focused on other people, I'm like, no one wants to hear about me. Let's hear about an interesting transformation for one of our clients or someone famous in the world. But they both kind of made the point that this is kind of our connection and our first start to the work that has become sort of the whole method of what Superabound is, from the progress formula and how we actually take steps towards those important life milestones, or what we call lanterns. If you aren't doing that in a way that cares for you, the business owner or the leader or the human with a big dream, if that being is not cared for, it's really hard to achieve anything. And we have actually watched people who achieve kind of quote unquote the big milestone or the big lantern, but they've done it in such a way that when they arrive, they're lonely. They have like burned away every important relationship in their world. They put on what we call the blinders of doom in the book and just went for it with such total commitment that they forgot what the point of the lantern really was as part of their bigger legacy. So in this chapter of the book, this is the very first chapter. It's called The Invitation. You'll hear both me and Steve reading our sections of this chapter. But it's a vulnerable story. It's a point of my life that really things could have really gone either way. And I decided to share it because I think, although it's not on the grand scale like a big celebrity or something like that, I think that this really speaks to moments that probably are going to be very familiar to you in your own life. And I hope that nobody ever has to go through what I went through, but if you have, I want you to know that There's some beautiful things on the other side of it. And if you're in it right now, I hope that you'll take the time to listen to the entire audiobook. If you prefer to read, that's wonderful. The book is, of course, available as a hardcover. But if you are a person who is busy, or you like to listen while you walk or work out or do things around the house, the audiobook is available. I believe it's on Audible and Apple Books and probably some other places that I don't know about, but those are the two that we know for sure. So please have a listen, enjoy this chapter, see what resonates for you, and if you love it, go out, grab the book. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to leave a book review for both the audiobook and the hardcover edition. We really appreciate it because otherwise we are just talking out into the universe without knowing who is receiving it and how it's helping you. So thank you again for that, and please enjoy The Invitation. Chapter 1, The Invitation, Erin's Breakdown. Part of me felt relieved as I looked at the ultrasound images before me. While the doctor explained what she saw, I finally had proof that my suffering was not just a hallucination. For the past 6 months, I dealt with a mysterious pain and joint swelling. It started in one knee, and over the course of a few weeks, spread throughout my entire body, making it painful to walk and hard to lift anything heavier than a teacup. After several trips to urgent care, tearful messages with my family doctor, round after round of inconclusive blood work, and one visit to a specialist that insisted I would end up in a wheelchair before my 31st birthday. Another expert and researcher agreed to see me and provide a second opinion. Seeing the evidence from within my body that there was something creating all this pain and immobility was strangely comforting. That is, until we began to discuss the common medications used to treat this condition. I wasn't against medical intervention, but the drugs used to treat conditions like mine were essentially low doses of chemotherapy. This gave me pause. When the doctor explained I would need to have my liver and kidneys tested regularly, and that if I was planning on having children, I would need to be off the medication for at least a year before getting pregnant, I knew this was a serious decision. Because the doctor knew my background as a yoga teacher and an acupuncturist, she suggested I use my holistic toolkit first, and then come to a decision I could feel peace around. I went home that day feeling the opposite of peace and reached out to my friend Jeff Carrera. Jeff is an internationally renowned meditation teacher and someone I trust. He has the rare gift of being able to speak the hard truth and have it feel like love. As we spoke, I broke down. I finally have my yoga business and acupuncture practice built up, and now I can hardly make it up the stairs, let alone teach, I sobbed. Plus, what am I going to do about my engagement to Steve? It's not fair to him to get married now, knowing how sick I am and what that might mean for our future. Without dismissing my fear or trying to brush my pain aside, Jeff offered me a different perspective. First, he agreed that it had been a lot of work to build what I had in my business and personal life. But then he asked a question I hadn't considered. What if the worst thing you can imagine right now, being sick and in a wheelchair before the end of the year, is actually an opportunity to do something that never would have been available without this health issue? Had anyone else posed this question at that particular moment, I would have hung up the phone. For months, people had been offering me tidy cliches that totally diminished my suffering. Everything happens for a reason, or maybe this is all part of some bigger mystical plan. Were not doing it for me, regardless of how well-meaning the people sharing this advice tried to be. Jeff's question was different, and not because of the words, but because of what I felt within them. I knew Jeff as someone who thought deeply about life and experienced awe in the face of the vastness of the universe. That made me start to wonder how I felt. If I believed the universe was a good place to be, and that perhaps it was even on my side, How might this current limitation be something other than the worst thing that ever happened to me? And how could it be the beginning of something I didn't know was possible? This moment of mental gymnastics opened my perspective and was an organic introduction to the power of mindset work. The possibility that every obstacle may be a nudge toward a new and more important path I hadn't yet discovered made me feel less frustrated by my situation and more attentive to the possibilities that surrounded me.
Steve's moment of truth. When Erin first started having health problems, we were in a long-distance relationship in 2 different countries. It was hard, since we spent our time apart planning the next time we'd be together, and our time together was overshadowed by a sad countdown to when we would be apart again. We knew we had a good thing going and would someday be together, in the same place, building the magical life we knew was possible. The questions were simply when and where. So it shocked me when she said over the phone one day, not long after we got engaged, "You don't have to go through with this." "With what?" I asked. "Getting married, having me in your life, the whole thing. You shouldn't be held back by someone who is broken." I was silent. It felt like her constant pain and physical limitations had started to give way to signs of depression as well. I still wanted Erin in my life, but she was changing. What if she was right and our dreams of a future filled with joy and adventure were never to be? Was I signing up to be her caretaker before we'd even lived a full week together? It felt scary committing to a path that could contain much more pain than I had originally expected. Pushing my 30-year-old wife around in a wheelchair was not something I had put in my life plan at that point. And major choices around having kids and career path were suddenly forced upon us before we were ready. I took a slow, shaky breath and connected with the deepest knowing I could access at the time. A voice within me said, "You don't know exactly what lies ahead. But Erin's essence is still in there, and the spiritual connection you share is stronger than this challenging moment." I couldn't rely on Erin's health to improve, and yet I had a sense that we had a meaningful path ahead. So I made a decision, one that I knew would have big implications for our future. I took another breath and said, "I'm not going anywhere. It's you I love, and I want to be with you however you are." "Are you sure?" she said. "Yes. You can scratch your worries about me off your list and use your energy to focus on your health instead." That wasn't the last time the question of whether we should stay together came up, either from Erin or replayed within my own mind. But after that point, I fundamentally knew where I stood. I was staying. I wanted to do this. That knowledge gave me clarity even amid the fear, sadness, or anxiety that would emerge as thoughts of our uncertain future entered my mind. Looking back on it, I still can't pinpoint why I was able to trust that things would turn out, to the point that I was even willing to upend my life. I couldn't see the top of the mountain that we were on, but I had enough confidence in the vision of our relationship, and, to be honest, the stubbornness to take on the challenges at hand, that we were able to keep going. Why this matters. You might be wondering, why start a book about achieving goals with an overly personal, kind of spiritual tale about a health scare in a long-distance relationship? There are a few reasons. First, we want to introduce ourselves to you as real people. Just like you, Erin and I have had tough moments and important crossroads to navigate. We don't pretend to have life wrapped up in a pretty bow, which means we have a lot of practice using the very tools we are going to share. The next reason is because there's power in seeing difficult situations, like a health issue or the separation of a long-distance relationship, as opportunities for growth. Tough moments give you a chance to test your resolve and become stronger. It would have been easy to throw in the towel on our relationship because of a diagnosis, but we would have missed the growth that comes from orienting our lives toward an important vision. As such, this is not a typical business or personal development book. We're not going to overwhelm you with case studies or not so subtle sales pitches trying to convince you to hire us or speak at your next conference. Don't get me wrong, Erin and I love presenting and working with clients, but the purpose of this book is to help leaders and entrepreneurs make their dreams a reality, regardless of what challenges may lie ahead. Throughout this book, you will find we've woven a metaphorical story about hiking up a mountain at night, because that is what bringing your plans to life in the world sometimes feels like. While anyone can benefit from what we share, it is business owners and leaders we feel most compelled to support because they are doing the impossible, sometimes being the only people in the world who believe in the importance of their vision. It is also important that you know we didn't create these tools out of thin air for the purpose of this book. The Superabound method has taken shape over years and has helped us go from freelance yoga teacher and corporate worker bee to two of the most well-respected coaches in our community and co-founders of a thriving business, where we have weekends off and epic vacations with our 2 young kids. These tools have helped us be a better team in so many ways. As business co-founders who are married with 2 children, you can bet what you're about to learn has been road-tested under some extreme conditions, both personal and professional. Most importantly, the Superabound method has successfully helped our clients do what had once been unimaginable to them, including quitting the corporate job, moving to a beach, and working remotely. You know, the Instagram dream. Growing a promising part-time business into a $1 million company. Creating a culture of teamwork so strong that the CEO finally took a month-long vacation. Reading and implementing the tools in this book will support you as a whole person, not just as the leader of a company or in the various roles you juggle. If that sounds like the kind of abundance you want in your life, let's get ready for an adventure.